Ruto.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for allowing me an opportunity to say what I know, because I've listened to what I don't know. And we are in that season, Madam Speaker, again. You know, one of the cardinal roles of this House, the Senate, one of the things that we take a lot of pride in is that we are the fulcrum around which devolution revolves, Madam Speaker. And we have been very consistent since I joined this House that we want to send as much money as we can, as much money as it is deserved, as much money as it is espoused in the Constitution to our devolved units, regardless of the bad manners that we see from the governors, Madam Speaker. And I'm sure I'll come to it, write down my contribution, Madam Speaker. If you read the submissions that have been made by the Council of Governors, you sometimes wonder whether these are the same people who don't want to take responsibility, who don't want to be accountable. And you know, Madam Speaker, I'm a Christian, a staunch Christian for that matter. If you read the parable of the talents, Madam Speaker, it was very clear. The people who are rewarded are those who are accountable of the talents that are given. Even the person who got 2 talents, I think, was rewarded. That is what is in the Bible. The one who took 1 talent and could not account for that 1 talent, they say that, we took this talent and went and hid it somewhere. They were punished severely. So therefore, the governors cannot keep saying that they want so much money pushed down the counties, Madam Speaker, but they don't want to appear before the Senate to come and account for the reason that they think. You know, they say that, what we have is not enough. But why don't you first account for what you don't, for what you have, so that you can get some more? You know, the provisions of the law for officers who operate interest, Madam Speaker, you only get your interest replenished when you have accounted for what you had already gotten, Madam Speaker. Let me say 2 very quick things, Madam Speaker. And I'm very, very happy about the work that has been done by our committee, the Committee on Finance, Madam Speaker, that regardless of the provocation and what I have heard as the comments that have been made by my colleagues, the senators, Madam Speaker, that regardless of the provocation that we have heard from the governors, those who speak very badly about this House, Madam Speaker, we have not lost sight of what we want, because, Madam Speaker, if you look at the functions that are in Schedule 4 of what the Constitution expects will be done by our devolved units, Madam Speaker, these are issues that really touch the person at the lowest level of the pyramid, Madam Speaker. Issues to do with water, issues to do with the provision of health services, Madam Speaker, issues to do with agriculture, issues to do with livestock, Madam Speaker, issues to do with trade, Madam Speaker. Very, very basic requirements of human dignity, Madam Speaker, are provided for in the Constitution, that there will be functions that will be undertaken by county governments, Madam Speaker. That is the reason why, as a Senate, we shall always continue, and we will all fight from the same direction, Madam Speaker, to push more money. And that is why I really support this proposal by the Finance Committee, that we are meant to have 454 billion sent to the county government, Madam Speaker, which is a significant growth, Madam Speaker. It is not out of nothing. And I think that is the reason why the Constitution, in the provisions of Article 203, Madam Speaker, were very specific of how much should go to counties, Madam Speaker. Counties are not at the mercy of the national government. I have seen the submissions that have been made by the National Treasury. They wanted to look like what is shared between counties and national government, Madam Speaker, is what remains after the national governments take care of its obligations, Madam Speaker. I've seen one of the reasons why they don't want to grow the revenue of the counties with about just 5 billion, Madam Speaker. They are saying that they are servicing national debt, Madam Speaker. What role does the counties have in borrowing? Do counties participate in borrowing? These are 2 levels of government of equal nature, Madam Speaker. It is not what remains after the national government takes care of its obligation, because anyway, when you borrow this money, you don't involve counties in the projects in the programs and the projects that you are undertaking. So it is upon you, the people at the national government, Madam Speaker, to know how you will repay this money that you're borrowing, it has nothing to do with the counties, Madam Speaker. What we need to look at is how has our national revenue grown within this financial year, Madam Speaker, so that we know. Now, like I have seen that the projected growth of our revenue, Madam Speaker, the ordinary revenue, Madam Speaker, it is projected that our revenue will grow from 2.64 trillion in the financial year 2026-2027 to about 2.9 trillion, Madam Speaker. That goes to about 261 billion. It cannot be that we are growing our ordinary revenue with 261 billion, but we only want to send 5 billion of the 261, Madam Speaker, that the only money that will grow in terms of the revenue that goes to the counties, Madam Speaker, is only 5 billion. That we must vehemently, and we must use every energy, every avenue that we have to ensure that we try and correct this wrong that cripples. You know, Madam Speaker, by the way, Madam Speaker, there was created a center of power that was not envisioned in the Constitution 2010, Madam Speaker. The National Treasury has become such a critical office, such a huge office, such a big office, that now looks like it is the one that are determining how much money goes to the counties, Madam Speaker. It is not the National Treasury that determines how much goes to the county governments, Madam Speaker. What goes to the county government is what has been provided for in the Constitution in the Article 203, Madam Speaker. Number two, I see and I would want the National Assembly to work with us, Madam Speaker. Sometimes we are growing revenues that are not necessary, in my opinion, Madam Speaker. How comes, Madam Speaker, for 4 years that this regime has been in power, the money that goes to, for example, big offices, Madam Speaker, like State House, has grown so exponentially, Madam Speaker, but the money that is supposed to buy drugs, you saw the minister speak here, Madam Speaker. They are saying SHA does not provide drugs, Madam Speaker. That is actually true. But how comes that we don't want to send money, enough money, Madam Speaker, to enable our governors, Madam Speaker, buy enough drugs so that our people can actually celebrate as much as those who are in State House are celebrating because their budgets have grown. There's nothing that the person from Vihiga, there's nothing that the person from Kisumu will get from government, because not all of us can be able to feed and go to State House and get the 3,000, 10,000 that is given there, Madam Speaker. We only want services to be taken to our people. Maybe finally, because I see my time is really gone. When we started, and you had, I think, if you even look at the national address that was made by the president in his first year, in his second year, he was taking a lot of pride when he was speaking, Madam Speaker, and he's saying that this will be the first administration that will ensure that we are sending enough money to counties on time. I wonder whether he can say that if he comes at the end of this year. Because, Madam Speaker, if you look at the money in the first half of 2025-2026, Madam Speaker, or 2026-2027, Madam Speaker, the first half, 50 billion, I had it in my notes, it is 50.4 billion has not been transferred to counties, Madam Speaker. So how comes we keep now changing? This country has a habit of things changing every day, and people speaking different languages every time. 1 minute you are speaking about Mama Mboga. Next minute you are speaking Mutia Boda Boda. Now you are no longer now speaking about Mutia Boda Boda. You are no longer speaking about Mama Mboga. You are now speaking about other different things. I think a week or two or a month ago, people were speaking about Nyota. Now people are no longer speaking about Nyota. I think we are now at Jua, going to Mwezi, and I don't know what, Madam Speaker. So we must be consistent in what we are saying. We must be consistent in what we are doing. And the Senate has been extremely consistent in terms of the growth of revenue. There is one more thing that I want to speak about, Madam Speaker. In the implementation of the remuneration and benefits review cycles, Madam Speaker, we are now at the third cycle. And I think for the third cycle, county governments require about 4.7 billion, and the fourth phase, they require about 5.2 billion, Madam Speaker. We must try and carry everyone along, Madam Speaker. Inflation is there. Things are changing. It cannot be, Madam Speaker, that we expect somebody to have the same quality of life as they had in 2022, and we are paying them the same salary that they got, Madam Speaker. This benefit review must be implemented. Finally, there is this group, and we have spoken about it, I think, since I joined this parliament, and I am now an old member of this house. I hear that by the last half of this year, I think I'll be 4 years, Madam Speaker. We must ensure that our UHC workers, Madam Speaker, are now permanently absorbed. This 8.9 billion, we can't keep speaking about it, Madam Speaker. Their contracts are expiring in April and September of 2026, Madam Speaker. It cannot be that we speak about this thing every now and then. This thing must be implemented once and for all before we get to campaigns, Madam Speaker. You know, when we get to campaigns, people will be buying paraffin to run motorcycles, Madam Speaker, and we don't want to get...
Honorable Senators, it is now 6:30 p.m. Time to adjourn the Senate. Senator Methu, you still have a balance of 10 minutes. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 29th April 2026 at 9:30 a.m.